have some fun. Oh, yes. Yes. Bubbles. Let's have some fun. That's what I'm doing. Yes. Let's have some fun. No structure, no rules, just fun and a beer for me. A little music, a little laughter, a little bit of joking around. It might be short, it might be long, I don't know. I'm trying things. I'm trying filters. Yes. I'm trying different filters. Yes. Let's have some fun. That looks fun. Everything is always working out for me. I wish you well being and joy. I am in love with my life. Everything is always working out for me. So, that is a cool one. Dawn. Everything is always working out for me. My hair looks interesting. I love it. I want to talk about how everything's working out for me. And in a few minutes, I might grab another drink because I'm drinking it fast, but I'm having fun. So, I love that life is challenging because it's an opportunity when we're feeling strong emotion that we don't want. So, for example, the um let's see. I want to look up. I want to look up Buddhist Buddhist principles. And my intention is not the Four Noble Truths. I think that's the one that I'm looking for. My intention is not to it's not to make fun of Buddhism. I love it. But it reminds me of my upbringing. My upbringing was Catholicism, and I remember a priest who seemed to have a lot of fun. He drank coffee, he smoked cigarettes, I'm guessing he drank alcohol, but I remember him laughing a lot and he seemed like a fun person. After the service, during the service, he seemed not to be having fun, and both of the priests that were at that church did not seem like they were having a lot of fun. So, generally speaking, it's possible to have fun as a priest, but generally speaking, I did not have that experience of people in my upbringing. So, in Buddhism, and while I love it, there are some things that I would want to talk about to better understand. It's not to uh, put it down or anything, but all life, okay, the truth of suffering. I've heard most was the principle that all life is suffering. Now, often when I've heard that, it was in the context of where in which someone was in great suffering and they said it in a way in which that's just inevitable. It just has to be that way. I've heard people explaining that true spirituality, whatever that is, I have a problem with that already when you talk about true spirituality. People have different ways of spirituality. And I didn't mean to get so serious right off the bat, but in my attempt to have it more lighthearted and fun, I ended up getting into some of the most intense subject matter accidentally. So what I want to get to is, so I want to have fun, and it's taken me a long time to figure out, to deconstruct the programming, to deconstruct the conditioning that I have been a part of and that's happened in me growing up in the culture that I'm in, 80s and 90s, and being surrounded by people that seemingly have a really hard time having fun and letting loose. And the reason for bringing a beer into the situation is that I like to use it as a symbol for, okay, now it's time to relax, now it's time to have fun. But what I've noticed is that sometimes we are still processing, we are still going through things, we are still letting go of things, and our work is never done. So I want to, if I notice that, I want to be willing to work through it. And so the principle of all life is suffering. Now I'm probably way wrong because I haven't studied a lot about Buddhism, but from the little that I've heard, sometimes when I hear people say all life is suffering, it's around a situation where someone is suffering and it's just inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it. I respectfully disagree. In extreme cases, if you're in the midst of excruciating pain and there's no morphine, there's no medical care, there's nothing around that can help soothe it, when in extreme cases, yes, it is true. And when it comes, and I'm talking about trauma, like I'm talking about someone's missing a limb, someone's, on the operation table, someone's been in a war, in a battle, in a violent encounter, a fight. But when I what I want to talk about is suffering when it comes to chronic pain and suffering. That is something that there is a solution for, in my humble opinion. But it takes some kind of deconstructing of the conditioning we have, and some kind of questioning or changing our beliefs, and looking at some of our chronically inaccurate beliefs and concepts. And when what I've also heard, I just couldn't resist saying that someone said that spirituality is never about getting what you want. And I wholeheartedly and respectfully disagree. Now, I'm not saying that that person is wrong about everything. I'm not saying that there isn't a point to it, because there is spirituality and personal growth, development, when it comes to the process of sharpening our minds, when it comes to the process of growth in our spiritual being, in our there is a manner of that. There seems to be some element of discomfort that can come with that, a willingness to feel uncomfortable. But it is not true that it is never about getting what you want. I think that it is about getting what you want. But it really just begs a lot of explanation as to why. So, the, my understanding of the Buddhist principles, all life is suffering. The cause of all suffering is desire. The cause of all suffering is wanting. I, when we want it, what I think that maybe the principle is implying is that when we want something, when what we're actually doing is we are experiencing lack of abundance in some way. When we want in that way, that does cause a lot of suffering. In fact, could be all of it. But when we want something and we feel good about it, like for example, I want a beer and it feels good, I want it, there's no suffering in that. I want it, I have it, there's no lack. What I think that it maybe is implying is a wanting that is a lack of getting. So I notice right now I want another beer. And so I'm going to go get it. And there's no suffering. There's so much more where that came from. I think it's inaccurate. It's not the whole picture. A, a person can be following Buddhism. For me, I don't spend a lot of time with Buddhism. I respect it. I respect it like all other cultures. People have told me that it's not a religion, but a lifestyle. Um, so in this part, this thing that I looked up, the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. More simply put, suffering exists. Now, suffering does exist for some people, and everyone has potentially suffered to some degree. Feeling discomfort, the tiniest bit of discomfort, almost everyone has felt that. I can't speak for everyone, but it's relatable. I think that's the point of it. You could talk about this forever. And I'm so curious why I'm going to this. But um, I want to go get my beer. Now, if I am experiencing lack of beer, that can be uncomfortable. But if I am certain, if I tell myself there is so much more where that came from, and I mean, I've had conversations with myself about it. It's like, okay, so today is such and such a day in the state that I live in. The stores, they're only open between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. So on Sunday they open at 11. If it's 3 a.m., that means I have 8 hours before I can go get some more. That's not long. They're open 12, 14 hours a day, between 7 and 14 hours a day. So even if it's just closed, they're going to be open in if you miss the liquor store on Saturday, they're going to be open 13 hours later. If you miss the liquor store on Sunday, they're going to be open 14 hours later. That's nothing. Now, if you're someone that has chosen to not want to feel, now someone could choose by default, I don't want to feel anything ever. And so I'm just going to drink as much as I can. That does not sound fun at all. It's so interesting. And since I have more than enough beer, I'm going to go get another beer and have fun. Sometimes having fun can be challenging. Have you noticed? Resistance comes up. And it seems like, in my experience, people, there's a part of each of us, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us, that loves to suffer. And so, with that, I am going to quickly go and grab another beer and have fun. Yes, I'm back. I love my life. Everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. I can always grow. It's exciting and thrilling that I can always grow from from having fun. My life. I love my life. It's fun. Yes. Yes. So I'm challenging myself. So I'm reading a book about um, money, and um, I'm trying to learn about, um, trying to read and learn about people who have gained and lost money, and learn about what works for people. Now, what doesn't work for me, or just maybe it'd be helpful for me to talk about my story, I might learn something. What hasn't worked is to just be in a frenzy of activity. My ancestors, my parents, grandparents, some of them business owners, relatives. I have some relatives that are very successful with money, but it's rare that I meet anyone that's not troubled by the subject of money and abundance. And there are plenty of examples of people that are doing almost no activity, and yet the money just keeps seems to keep rolling in and rolling in. Now, what I just noticed was I spent some time talking about Buddhism and suffering, and just the mention of those topics. It's really hard to talk about. It's really depressing. Um, but when we flip the script and we look at what's possible, when I move to a solution to poverty, and I begin, what's worked for me in my life is when, because when I've noticed that I've gained and lost jobs, I've quit jobs, applied for so many different jobs. I started working when I was 9. I started helping my brother with a paper route. I started my own paper routes at 12 years of age, and then I started working in restaurants at 14 and worked a variety of different jobs. And every time I got a job, so many times I've noticed that the feeling I get when I get my first paycheck, I begin to relax a lot. And there's an expectation that more is coming, and there's nothing to worry about. And that is the kind of feeling that I want to perpetuate. When I'm feeling, when I'm challenged, say for example, apparently nothing seems like it's coming. Like for example, bank account's really low. I have debts that I'm unable to pay. I'm late on payments. There's nothing more challenging in my life. I shouldn't say that. It's one of the most challenging feelings I've ever had of stress. Probably the most challenging is something along the way of intimate relationships, but it's a similar in level of intensity and stress. But what I want to train myself to do is to feel the feeling of that first paycheck. Feel the feeling of my biggest paycheck as much as possible every day throughout the day, because feeling lack of abundance, feeling like I'm poor is what doesn't work. I'm certain that it helps to feel. I have observed people that have a lot of money coming in. They have a healthy expectation. It's just impossible to not see this. Even when people who have a lot seem like they have moments of doubt, they have moments of feeling lack. The fact is that when you feel abundant, when you feel like when you say to yourself, like, for example, this is a beer and there's so much more where this came from. If I need to, I can go to the store, and about, even if the store is closed, I can go back in 12 to 14 hours. If we constantly remind ourselves and put a good feeling to the thought, that is what is the key to our feeling abundant and attracting wealth. Now, this is controversial. Some people think it's just total garbage. They think it's the secret, and they think that the law of attraction is garbage. And I respect that. I respect that people don't agree with that. Um, I have to try, because when I feel like nothing's coming in, when I feel like there's no possible money ever gonna come, when it seems like there's no way out, it actually perpetuates longer. But when I feel, and I don't wait for that first paycheck, when I choose to feel, a lot of times I start really small, and I think this is a good practice to start. Can I find a molecule? Can I find the smallest amount of good feeling to choose in this moment? Some people believe that you can't choose to feel what you feel, it just comes. I wholeheartedly and respectfully disagree. I say that there's more to it than that. It's true when you don't notice a different way of thinking, when you haven't gained the knowledge and the understanding and the wisdom that comes through experience, and you don't know how to, it's just not yet. People have not utilized this. Okay, so here's an example. I see celebrities, it seems like they are just grabbing any kind of ad, any kind of, every moment of every day they're trying to gain revenue on on their social media, on their doing advertisements. When it seems like the economy's having trouble, then they're just going to take any job they can possibly get, and just endless activities. They're not enjoying themselves. What it seems like is people are in, they can be billionaires and still be in a poverty mindset, in a mindset of there's not enough to go around. There's a limited number of dollars. When we feel that, we actually we put out into the field a need for more abundance, and until we line up with that, we're putting that out into the field as a possibility. And then when we line up with that and choose to feel good, then we experience that, and we can experience it quickly. Now, the way where I have experienced this with money, but where I've experienced this with this most is in just feeling pleasure, in feeling healthy in my body. I never ever get sick, and I've had so many opportunities to test this. I do experience symptoms, but they are short lived, and it's not sickness ever. There's no illness in my body. There never will be. I promise you. What I'm doing is I'm applying those same principles to wealth, riches, money, happiness, abundance, because when I feel abundant, when I have like an unlimited, unmistakable, undeniable, undefeatable mentality that I will be, I will always be wealthy, I will never be poor. That's what happens. This is the core of our life experience. I've heard people say you can't just feel that way, you can't just think that way and expect things to work out for you. You have to take some action. There is a balance to it. And for me, it is called inspired action. In my life, if I could do this whole thing over, I would have not jumped into working hard. I don't know how else to say it. Working hard has not gotten me anything. People, some people respect me, but I have a hard time thinking of anyone. I brought it up to one of my parents and said, I heard you say this once, and they don't remember saying it. I remember a time when I was in high school, it seemed like people respected me for my work ethic, but I got nothing from that. Working hard, there's a misconception there. If it's coming from a feeling of, I love my job, I want to be prosperous, I want to work 12 hours, 14 hours today. Wonderful. You have the energy for it. Good job. Go for it. But it doesn't earn you anything. There's so many examples of people who they wanted to work hard, and they felt every minute of every day, they felt lack of abundance, and then eventually they get fired, and then they went out and bought a gun, and you know what? They killed themselves. We can train ourselves to feel good. We can train ourselves to feel abundant. We can do this. Yes. I love my life. Everything is always working out for me. That is what I want to get to. A feeling of well being, a feeling of abundance, appreciating where I'm at, making the most of where I am right now in this moment. When I look back, I have almost never missed a meal unless I was intentionally doing a fast. When I put forth some effort toward feeling good and feeling happy, I could almost always do it. It didn't take days and days. I was always rewarded for my effort to move energy. I just spent some time doing this where I was breathing downstairs. I think 21 or 22 times of just breathing in like this. And I had an intention with it. I had a strong feeling with it. And within a short time, I began to feel a burst of oxygen through my lungs and up into my brain. I love my life. I love my life. It feels so good. I feel tingling all up in my brain. When we move energy, when we sit in stillness, when we close our eyes and we focus, we observe the unknown. It's wonderful. It's a dream. Am I here or will I disappear? Am I here or will I disappear? It can be challenging to remind ourselves of the truth, but it's there. And I think that maybe I want to spend some time reminding myself of what's true because it's fun. I wish you happiness. I wish you peace. I wish you to start a happiness practice. And as always, I am not a professional anything. This is not meant to be advice. I am a student. I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm not a health teacher or wellness teacher. I am not a coach of any kind. I'm not a medical professional. None of that. There are other people that can help you with professional services. I am just putting out content for a conversation. If you want to go live with me, please let me know. I'd love to do that. Almost anyone. As long as you agree to YouTube's guidelines. Thanks for listening and watching. I love my life. I wish you joy.